Hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to present Dion McCormick, no relation, who is our lead solutions engineer. Also joining us today, Sarah Mitchell, who is in charge of documentation, will be here to answer your questions as well. Dion will start by doing a quick presentation of a new feature in Alpha Anywhere, but then he and we are here to answer your questions. So you can enter those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started. Hello, Dion, are you there? Oh, I gotta unmute you. That might be easier. Hey, Dion, are you
There,
there?
yeah, now. Hey, you
All
were the
right.
muter.
I muted you. I'm sorry, man. All right. I'll make you
Rusty.
the presenter. And there's your
Awesome.
screen. Awesome.
Yes. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I think things have started to settle down. The kids are in school. People can get back to just cranking out code and cranking out systems. So this is really fun. Hey, a lot of really cool stuff going on. In fact, a lot of new little features and capabilities that have been added to Alpha recently. So I wanted to spend a little time showing you a particular one. And we had a couple really good questions from people who came in at guides@alphasoftware.com. That's GUIDES at alphasoftware.com. And we always appreciate those. It gives us a little heads up, allows us to get, kind of our mind in the right place and be able to hopefully answer the questions. With that said, if you do have questions, that's why we're here. Go ahead and go to your GoToWebinar control panel, go into the questions area and go ahead and input your question. We have on board both Dave, who will manage that, and also Sarah, who's here as always, which is a great help, and we appreciate that. And we'll review those and get those questions answered as much as possible or as best as possible. Along with that, just wanted to let everybody know that Transform Tuesdays are on Tuesdays. Really cool stuff. A lot of really neat demonstrations recently that have been very exciting and very interesting. And so if you are interested in joining that, make sure to send your request to guides@alphasoftware.com and make sure you get on that list, and Dave will take good care of you on that weekly webinar. Really cool stuff. And then also an announcement for next week, we will actually be having a presentation versus our standard Q&A. So Dave, I'll let you kind of give us a little more flavor on what we're going to be seeing next week on our weekly webinar.
Sure. So next week we have a company coming in called PYZE, P-Y-Z-E, and they make software that's meant for software developers who are interested in monitoring their software. I mean, the real problem is when software goes out into the field, you often don't know where users might be getting hung up on certain things, or where they might just simply be dropping out, or how often they're using it. And what this software can do is it can give you all kinds of interesting metrics on both your web applications as well as your mobile applications to let you know what features are being used and which ones aren't. So it's kind of cool. It's pretty techy, and I've asked them to delve into the weeds and really get into the techie portions of it as much as they can. So if you're interested in doing enterprise level applications, or maybe software as a service type application, or you're just interested in being able to monitor your applications in general to see how they're performing, I think this might be an interesting presentation for you. So that'll be next Wednesday. Thanks, Dan.
Absolutely. And a lot of our alpha developers are building SaaS solutions, software as a service. And one of the key things is those metrics and monitoring that will let you know, A, how well people are doing with your system, but also more importantly, where little glitches that allow you to increase sort of engagement with your end clients. And, you know, if they're struggling with things, you can make their life easier and thus improve the platform. And being a software as a service, the sooner you have those metrics and that visibility, the sooner you can alter your software to then address those, and what your users will love it if they're running into little gotchas. So really neat. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the session myself. And so make sure to note it on your schedule for next week, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that. So today we're going to spend a little time here talking about a new feature. It's part of the UX Builder. Actually, it's part of both the server side and the client side. It's a combination of both. And I think you're going to see really neat. It addresses a key issue that a lot of people faced a while back in terms of how to properly notify users when things are going on and whether they're longer term things. So we're going to dive into that today. And then I have a couple other questions that I'd like to go through, and kind of they came in through guides, and we'll go through those and open it up for general questions. So first and foremost, today's topic is blowing chunks. That's we're getting into the fall, so decided to do a
Oh,
little theme there.
huh.
Yes. I
Did
found a
not see
lot.
that coming. Did not see that coming. Okay.
Yeah,
Go.
I found a lot more really disgusting ones, so I kind of tamed it down. It's just like
Oh,
he gets. Be very, just a little quick note, be very careful what you type into your browser these days.
hmm
It's just may come back with something a little surprising. So no, this one I thought was relatively entertaining, very kind of, I think the only problem is that that's good for like what, 3 hours, and then it starts smelling really bad. Unless they've sprayed it with some kind of Teflon coating or something like that. Nothing worse than kind of rotting pumpkins, which we'll see soon. And very excited about the fall season, so that's kind of there. But really, it's called chunked responses is the name of the
yeah.
feature. And it's in the latest production release. And I've been wanting to do this for a while because it's a very valuable, very useful feature. So to explain a little bit more about it, we need to talk about the a little underlying technology built into Alpha called Ajax. And what's really funny is when I was doing my research on this, I went up and I go, oh, interesting. I never knew what Ajax actually meant. I always used the term, but I never learned what that was. So what Ajax is, and Alpha uses this technology, is called asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Although the XML part has kind of dropped off these days, it's stuck. That was when it was originally built. It was really focused on asynchronous JavaScript along with XML, but now there are more effective ways to move things back and forth. But the important thing to realize, and the key part of that, is asynchronous. So let's talk a little bit more about it. So you have your device in the field, whether it's a laptop, a desktop, or a mobile, and it's communicating with the Alpha Anywhere application server. So basically the application or the device out in the field is sending questions or requests to the Alpha Anywhere, and then the Alpha Anywhere is responding back to it. And one of the common practices you have is that if, let's say, you have a UX component and you do what's called an Ajax callback, basically you have a button that says, okay, take the information here, send it back to the server, let the server do some stuff, and then send me back a response. So what happens is when the person clicks on a button or you trigger it through any one of different means, it sends a request back to the server. So it's like, hey, server, I need this. And so what it's doing is at this point is it's calling back to run a Xbasic function that you designate. And along with that, it's sending the information about the current state of the user interface, the device out in the field, so that the server has all the information it needs to then go ahead and process that. And we've done Ajax callbacks, and they're very powerful because then you can trigger very fancy results in the back end. And very soon, which is very exciting, is you're going to be able to, instead of just triggering Xbasic functions, you're going to be able to trigger Node.js or Python scripts on the server and have that, and then have the result come back. Now, I've sent the request out. It's gone back to the server. Server is going to sit there and munge on it, do what it needs to do, and then a response will be sent back to the device, and then the device will do something with it. Often it's updating different fields or giving the user a message, etc. Now, the key thing about this is that we have what's called variable timing, i.e. the transaction is asynchronous, meaning the request was sent, and then this goes on and does whatever it wants to do, and it's just sitting there waiting for a response, and it is in a sort of waiting mode. So you really never know exactly what this timing is. Synchronous would be send it, then this locks up and waits for it, and then a reply comes back and then unlocks it. But we're using asynchronous, so it's variable. So you need a methodology for long-running processes to notify the user that something is going on. And that's really the heart of where chunk responses come in. It gives you a new tool to essentially notify the user that things are happening on the back end. So if you have a very long process being triggered, often, you kind of want to give the user a better sort of notification of what's going on so that they realize something is really happening versus just I sent the request and nothing happened. So I've created a little demonstration to show a couple different ways to handle this, but most importantly, settling on the most powerful one, which is called chunked responses. So with that, I'm going to switch over into my development environment. And I'd like to go ahead and show you a little demonstration I put together. Very simple demonstration. So the demonstration, I'll go ahead and go into my working preview. Actually, I'll do live preview. I like live preview for this. Oh, got to start my server. Should have done that. Bad, bad, bad. Okay, so we have live preview. And we basically have a very simple UX. It has a series of buttons here. And then on the right-hand side, we have some results. And the idea is that I have a interface and I'm going to click a button to go back to the server and do some process, and it happens to be a long running process. And so how do we notify the person sort of what's going on, how's it going? And I want to show you a couple different ways. So first, let's look at this first button right here. So I'm going to go into this first button right here, and you'll see that all this button is doing is running an action called Callback 1. And I'm going to go over to my JavaScript actions, and you'll see there is Callback 1. And what this is doing is this JavaScript action, when this is clicked, is doing what we call an AJAX callback back to the backend system and calling a function called Callback 1. So this is the straight out of the box, straightforward. Basically, you click the button, it calls this action. That action then packages everything up and sends it back to the backend, runs this function Callback 1. So let's go ahead and look at that real quick. So I'm going to go into my Xbasic functions, and here is my callback function. Very simple. Basically, I put everything to sleep for 5 seconds just to simulate a long running, and then I set the results of the front end to process complete. So basically, I set a field on the front end to show what's going on. So let's go ahead and demonstrate this real quick. So this is our plain vanilla. So you'll see I'm going to click Callback 1, and you'll notice nothing's happening, but the reality is the callback is occurring, and then you'll see in a moment process complete occurs after, in this case, a fixed amount of time. And I'm going to hit this little clear results that clears it out. And let me hit it again. You'll see that it looks like nothing's happening, but the reality is the server is processing my request, and then when it's done, it's sending it back to there. Now, the issue may be if the server gets really busy, this could take longer. If it's not so, be it lower. But it kind of like, what's that feedback loop to the user saying, hey, guess what? You have something going on and I'm still processing that. And that's the heart behind is to give the user chunked responses to give the user a better there. So the first step towards that was, well, when I click this callback here, instead of just it being a mystery and then the result coming back, why don't I tell the person I'm doing something? So I'm going to go back into my design and I'm going to change this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to now do what's called a callback with a wait. And let me go ahead and modify my code here real quick, and I'll walk you through it in a moment. So let's say I have a situation where I want to click a button and tell the user something is going on. So what I'm opening up right now is, remember, when I call back here, I just send, hey, call back, run that action callback. Well, in this case, I'm using a different technique wherein I am using a built-in function that will show a message box with a message to the user, and then I execute the callback. So I just want to give the person kind of confirmation they've clicked the button and that something is going on. So when the person clicks the button, the first thing is Alpha is going to do on the device, whether it's a mobile or whatever, it's going to pop up a little message saying, hey, I'm in the process of doing this callback. Then it does the callback there. And then what happens is that once, and I've unchecked this, once it's done this callback, it sets the results of that field, but it also sends back a little piece of JavaScript that says, okay, I'm done. Go ahead and hide that message. So let's go ahead and demonstrate and show you how this works. So you'll see here my results are empty. I've got my second button here. When I click this, it's going to do the callback, but it's also going to put up the message. So watch. Notice that it put up a message here. Now my user interface is locked. I'm locking it here. And now notice that in a moment, it finished that Xbasic callback, it updated this field here, and that little piece of JavaScript made the window disappear. So every time I do that, it's going to throw up this message right here telling the user something's going on, and then it updates this results here with what happened with that callback. So if you want to make sure the person doesn't do anything while this callback is occurring, use this methodology, because what it will do is it essentially locks the front end that so they can, they know something's going on, they saw the response, but they can't really modify it from there. And again, the way I did that is first, when I made the callback, I put these little pieces of code, and let me go ahead and copy that and put that onto our chat window, paste it there, so in case you want that. So that's what shows the message there. And then what we do is in the callback itself, we return a little piece of JavaScript, and this could be other pieces of JavaScript, but this is all I'm returning right now, is this little piece of JavaScript, and I'm pasting it into the chat window right now. And that basically tells the user interface to close that message box and not show it anymore. Now, there's a couple things about this. There's two elements to it. One, it locks the interface so this person's kind of stuck until things are done, but that may be important criteria. The other thing that goes on is that, let's say something happens and this fails and doesn't come back with this proper hide, you could have that box, that message sitting on the screen for a while. And I think there's a way to actually do a timeout to like close this thing. But there is a danger that if something happens, then you may be stuck and the person may have to refresh their screen to get rid of the callback or to get rid of this message that's shown on the screen. So that's the only downsides of this one. I mean, again, I use it a lot when there are long-term processes, and it's fairly stable in terms of the important thing I do is in my Xbasic function, if for any reason I have an error here, I will trap it, send the message back to the user, but always make sure, even if there's an error on the back end, I always send this message back to the front end, so I unlock it for the user. So if I can use my on error go to capability to say, if any error occurs during this, go ahead and just tell the user something happened and make sure to hide that message box there. Now that's suboptimal, and the reason it's suboptimal, again, is the locking, and the other is it could be a really long callback. It could go for 10 seconds, 15. Why do you want to lock out the person? There may be other things they can be doing with their user interface. And this is a simple UX, but it might be sort of a tabbed UI environment or something else where you can have them go off and be doing things there. So now comes in the chunked responses. And how that works is really cool. Is basically, right now, what I've told you is that the request gets sent, and what we've seen so far, and then the process occurs on the back end, and then the server says, okay, all done, here's my response here. Well, with a chunked response, what you can do is you don't have to wait until the process is over before sending a message back to the front end. So during the process, you can send several little messages back to the front end saying, this is what's going on, here's where we're at, we're still in process, things going on there. So it gives you an enormous amount more flexibility. And in fact, let me go ahead and demonstrate that. So now I've got my first one where you just have 5 seconds, it's a mystery. Second one where I use that sort of wait message. Now watch the third one here. So I'm gonna click this callback number 2, and I'm using a chunked response. And I want you to watch over here in the results. So you'll see the moment I click that, oh, let me go to working preview. You have to be in working preview because it depends on running inside the browser. So let me go ahead and show you that. So I'm gonna go ahead and click here, watch the results. You'll see the first step, second step, third step, and then the process done. So that actually went pretty fast. So let me go ahead and do this real quick. And I'm just going to make my sleeps go a little longer here. I'm just simulating this here. And let me go ahead and do that again. And then again, watch the result here. You'll see that even though the script was still running, I'm able to give the person some indicators. So like after 2 seconds, it fires the next thing, 2 seconds more, the thing, and then my final process done. And so therefore, I can be sending messages back to the user. Now, I'm doing a simple just update of a label here, But you could be doing things like showing and hiding images or doing anything you want. There are tons of opportunities because basically you're just sending back some JavaScript to say, hey, now do that. So let's look at how I achieved that result. So first step is I'm going to go into my callback to button here. And you'll see I'm, like I did before, I'm running a action called callback to. So I've generated a JavaScript action that does that AJAX callback, and it's called callback to. Pretty creative, huh? So let's go back to add JavaScript actions. I'm going to go into my JavaScript actions. Here's my callback to. I'm going to edit that. And you'll see it's an AJAX callback. And you'll see it looks almost identical to the previous one. Basically, we're saying use an internal Xbasic function. Here's the function name to use. But most importantly, there's a new feature down here called chunked responses. So I enable that. Normally it's off, I turned it on. And there's some variables you can do in terms of modifying how long this works from here. So basically I do the same thing we do before in terms of an AJAX callback, but I enable this chunked responses capability. Now, once I've done that, it opens up a new world of capabilities. So let's go ahead and look at my script right here, okay? So here is my little script that's running. And again, I'm just using these the sleeps here to simulate a long-running process where things are going on. So maybe I'm doing a series of updates to a database, and I want to say, oh, I've done this part of it, or I'm doing 3 or 4 transactions. Who knows? Calling a web service. I want to tell them what's going on from there. So what I did first here, and I used an example, was I built in a series of JavaScript commands, and all they are is dialog.setValue results to a text. So you'll see over here we have a label control called results, and if I do a set value of the label to this value, then when this JavaScript runs, it's going to update the result, that label. And so really I just pre-canned a series of little update messages, and they're just little pieces of JavaScript that set the value of that label. And again, this is any JavaScript you want. So you could have it showing different panels, showing and hiding containers, you name it. The sky's the limit. You just have to turn it into some level of JavaScript that can be sent back. Now what I do is the following. You'll see I have a new command here, and this was added with this feature called A5 AJAX chunked response write. And basically what this does is when Xbasic sees this, when the server sees this, it takes a moment and it sends that JavaScript back to the front end, to the device or to the web browser who's waiting for those messages. So when I click and do the callback behind the scenes, the browser is saying, oh, you know what? I'm going to be getting some messages, so I'm going to get ready to do that. And then when I send this message back, it's saying there. Now, there are 2 formats of this. You'll see that I have a JS1, which is simply my JavaScript command here, but I'm also passing in an E command here. And the reason why is that if I use anything like dialog object, then I have to include this E. If it's just pure JavaScript, doesn't depend on any of Alpha's built-in sort of libraries, you just have to say, for instance, just JS1, so you can send that there. But since I'm using a built-in Alpha function, I have to pass it also the E object, because that's passed to me, and then I can pass it along to this, and then it takes care of it. It has to do with how Alpha understands how to generate the JavaScript that truly runs on the web browser. This is a function that gets translated into a series of underlying little steps that happen from there. So you'll see when the callback occurs, I immediately send back a message with setting the results to first step. Then I sleep for 2 seconds. Then I send back to the front end my second message, sleep for 2 seconds, the third message, and then finally, after my last 2 second sleep, I sent back my last message, which is called process done. And then I do what's called a A5 AJAX chunked response done. So I can tell the web browser, hey, there's no more messages coming on, because the web browser is sitting there waiting, or the mobile device is waiting for this information to come back. You want to make sure it doesn't wait for too long and it just keeps that open. It's a resource, and there's resources, and it's just good practice. So what we do is, after we're done sending everything, we give them this last little command, and that will tell the browser, okay, all done, we're finished up with this, and you're good to go. So you could have, if you wanted to, just copy this and put it right here, but this was a part of the example from there. So as I do my live preview here, you'll see when I click on my button, watch the results over here, you'll see immediately, you see first step, then 2 seconds later, second step, 2 seconds, third, 2 seconds more, process done. And behind the scenes, you don't see it, but it also sent the command back here saying, I'm all done. I don't have any more messages for you. You can go ahead and close your sort of incoming listening ears and put those away from there. And so this is a chunked response. And as you can see, very simple. I mean, the only tricky part is figuring out what JavaScript you want to execute on the front end, but the actual implementation is just putting in these commands. And so for instance, let's say you were doing a command where you were going to click a button and update like 100 different like queries. So like you were going to insert 100 records or do things like that. Well, in your loop here, you can just merely put in messages to send back to the person. So as this process is occurring, you can say, I'm on item 1 of 100, 2 of 100, 3 of 100. So they get a sense of what's going on. And it's a very powerful user practice because when people are like in mystery mode, they have insanely short periods of sort of patience. My understanding is if anything doesn't happen under 2 seconds, people think the system broke. So you want to give that feedback to the person in some way, shape, or form so they know something is going on there. And the more information you can give them, the more patient they'll be. And the more patient they are, the less frustrated and the more enjoyable they'll enjoy your system. So this is a really cool feature. Again, the tricks are the following is one, when you actually create your Xbasic action or your action JavaScript, make sure you turn on chunked responses. Then when you do the actual Xbasic, just use the A5 Ajax chunk response right along with some JavaScript, and then make sure you close out with this final one just to notify that everything has been completed. By the way, a good practice is like, for instance, you'll see in here, I've got a little test button here. In here, I just did my little JavaScript to make sure it's perfect, so I do it here. And then I copied that JavaScript and went back to my Xbasic function. So I didn't have to worry about and then just pasted it here and modify it. That way I know it's going to work in the interface and I don't have to worry about, oops, I made a spelling error or did something wrong. And the JavaScript that's coming back can't be used by the browser from that standpoint. And that's called chunked responses, really straightforward. By the way, when you create your function prototype, you'll see that at the very bottom, your Xbasic, here's some documentation that talks about it. So I basically took this sample and modified it. You'll see in their sample, they're putting pure JavaScript. You're using a jQuery methodology here to update some text on the front end, and then they're just spitting out the JS1. I tend to try to use as much as possible Alpha's built-in functionality, just because I find it's easy to build and maintain over time. I don't have this arcane looking kind of text I have to figure out what it's doing. And therefore, if you do, you have to make sure to put in that comma and put the E variable behind it. Otherwise, my style, which is the alpha version, will not work properly. So just something to know, you got to make sure if you use any of Alpha's built-in functionality on the JavaScript side, include that comma E. If not, then you can just go ahead and put in any kind of there, including jQuery and other kind of things. And we have some really fun stuff in development now that will even open up newer ways to do some really cool stuff using JavaScript on the front end with very little effort. It's going to be really, really fun. So with that, I'm going to take a break here, Dave, and open it up for questions about this particular topic. I do have a couple other quick things I need to cover from people who sent things in, but I'll go ahead and pause at this moment.
Great. So a couple of things. First of all, someone has asked if you could share the Xbasic function you did for the chunk response so that they can
Oh,
take
sure.
a look
Let
at
me
it.
go ahead and do that. That's a good point. I will go ahead. You know what? I'm going to delete this lower part because nobody needs boilerplate, and that can automatically be recreated there. Make sure you don't clip there. By the way, I've been seeing this a lot, and I think, it's been reported. This, this is, and I'm sorry, it's a little aside, but it's something to know. You'll notice, wait, what? Something's going on. There's a problem here, and it's got a little
Right.
red here, and it's saying expected assignment to return for function callback there. And so, but this will compile okay. So I might have to do is go, let me see if I do this. I think I have to say also call back to is equal to,
Something, yeah.
yeah, empty. Yeah, that got rid of it there. But I've been
Yep.
seeing that a lot. If you have it, you can just click on it and it'll tell you what to do. But really, there's nothing to be returned from this. I mean, I'm doing it in the chunk response, but I'm going to keep that in to make it clean there. So let me go ahead and copy this. And I will go to my and paste it there. Okay, it is on the chat window. So pretty neat there. So a lot of fun.
Very cool. So another question someone had is, can you do chunking like into a progress control?
Yes, the answer is absolutely. Because, look, do you guys want to give it a try? Let's see what happens
Yes,
here.
let's
Let's
do
go
it
ahead.
live.
Okay, so let me go.
What
I'm
did
going
the
to go down here.
Yeah.
Let's screw this up. Okay, so I'm going to go to the progress indicator. Actually, I'll use the step indicator, which is probably, and I'll go step it up. Okay, so I'm going to go in there, and it's just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. And so that's my step indicator. Okay, and it sets up with 1, and remember this is 0 value. We did this about 3 weeks ago, so we do there. So to test this, before I get into writing code on the back end, I want to make sure I understand what my JavaScript should be. So I'm just going to put a button in here. I'm going to call test step. Okay, I'm going to go in there, and I'll go into my text mode, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go dialog.object dot step it set value, and I'll go ahead and right click on this black area and say step it up, comma, and to test it 2. Oops, comma 2. So basically I have a little piece of JavaScript. When I click on it, it's going to set the value of my step indicator to 2, and remember 0 based. So let's see if I did that correctly. There we go. Cool. So now I've got that. So why don't I go ahead and just grab this? I'm going to copy that here and go back to my Xbasic function. Now remember, it's already defaulted there. So let's go ahead and for first step is going to be, let's just put it here. So put it here. So that's going to be 1. So you see all I'm doing is 2 and then 3. So I'm combining, in this case, 2 different pieces of JavaScript, one to give them a visual indicator from a textual, and the other is to change the value of it from there. And so what's going to happen is when this gets sent back to the front end, the browser is just going to say, oh, thank you very much. I'm going to process these things here and go from there. So let's see if it works. It's fun. It's exciting. Okay. So go ahead and do the chunked response. There we go. Voila.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, I mean, Alpha made it so easy. I mean, everything was easy. Again, I highly recommend that you do this so that you know your JavaScript's perfect. And then in my case, it was just copy paste and a little edit, and it just worked. And that could be much more significant. By the way, this is a built-in indicator, but you could also, there are many third-party progress indicators, the cool ones that kind of look like they're flowing from left to right. And all you have to do is maybe write out some jQuery or some update a div with the status. But you can use third parties. You're not limited to Alpha components. It can be anything that can be manipulated with JavaScript. And there's tons of great JavaScript libraries. And again, Alpha has some really cool stuff coming out later this year in terms of expanding our ability to use more advanced JavaScript techniques to create better interfaces. But yeah, right. I mean, let's go ahead and do one thing here. Let's go ahead and let's put this over here. And I would probably set the initial default value to be, I guess it's got to be 1. So, so we'll go ahead and do that here. So visually, maybe I would do my process step names there. So you can see, so I can give them both an indicator of what's going on. Oh, nope. Remember, live preview. And I should be doing fast preview, but go there. Okay. So you can see first step, 2, 3, and maybe give them some more information about what's going on, what that step is doing, like, calling the database, etc. So fun stuff. All you need to know is what the JavaScript is to do there, and the chunk response will make sure it gets sent there properly.
Very cool. Very cool. Actually, someone just pointed out, we were talking just a moment ago about how your function was invalid because it wasn't returning a value. Well, it turns out, and actually, let's try this. Instead of defining your function as a character, you can say return it as a V type, which is a void.
Very cool.
Let's
So I can
try
go
this
in
out
here.
right now. So it should be V, and then you can get rid of that. And then let's see.
That
No errors
works.
so far. No errors
Yeah,
so far.
I know,
Let's
but
try running it.
let's do some quality control here.
The proof of the pudding is in the.
Oh, that's neat. So it doesn't have, normally that the reason you do is C, yeah, it's working fine, is that you're going to return some JavaScript when it's all over to do a final step, like I did with Callback 1, where it did there. But in this case, I'm going to be doing all my communication through.
Yeah.
That's great. Good note for everybody to know is that
Thanks very much.
which is
not going to name any names, but thanks, Vaughn, for that one. So,
yeah. He likes V. It's just his favorite letter in the alphabet for some reason.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So, and actually, someone was wondering if you could make this whole UX available.
I would love to. It's standalone there.
Yeah. So just what you do is just send it to me after the webinar, and then I will make sure that when it is posted. And by the way, I think we're up to date now on posting our videos. Finally.
Yes.
Way behind. Sorry about that. We'll put a link right in the video, below the video, so you'll know how to get to the.
And let's just make it interesting. Let's go. Dave is so cool. Here are the results. So that way, it's going to look a little nicer. It's going to be better.
Also, feel free to also send an email to guides, GUIDES, @alphasoftware.com, and I can send it to you as soon as Dion sends it to me.
You got it, everybody.
This is a cool example. Like it.
Yeah, it's fun. It really, and again, all the hard work's done by, there were other methods that were put in place. I remember seeing them and had to do like creating multiple callbacks where the first callback goes back and then you call the second one. Just not very unwieldy and not very practical. So the team, and I'm going to give Kurt a lot of credit, went back and said, well, how can we make this simple for the developers? And as you can see, it's just now built into the architecture. It's nice.
Excellent. Well, it looks like I've got a gotcha question here. It says, well, what happens if you only have one process that runs a long time? How would you use chunk responses?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Like you send it to a stored procedure, and
something like that, or you have it run a report or something.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Alpha has threading, so you can play with threading, but I've never really had a ton of success with that. The reality is Alpha is really just single kind of thread structure there. Here's how I handle
that. Type of process that could be broken. Yeah. That could be broken down.
This is how I do this. Is that often in that kind of scenario, maybe I have a tabbed UI. So what I'll do is I'll say, I'll in this case, it's a single screen here, but in a tabbed UI, I could open this up, hit here and say, come back in 5 minutes, and then they can go do other kind of things. Now, the other thing I can do, which is what you'll see in a lot of systems, is that I can email the person when the process is done, and then they come back and then pick up the results here. And that's usually, for higher volume systems.
I've seen that too, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
HubSpot,
or text me when it's done. And if they're willing to put in, you got like Twilio or SparkPost or some other kind of connection, you could text the person when it's done. So for some,
they're still logged in and they're doing something with the system, maybe a disclosure or something that pops up.
Yeah, so let me show you how this.
By the way,
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do this. Even though Vaughn's really smart, I'm going to go back here. And what I want to do is this. So here's an example. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to my JavaScript action. I'm going to add a new action called complete message. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and create in that complete message a transient message. And I'm going to go process is complete. So just a static message that says the process is complete. Okay, now I'm going to grab and click to see the JavaScript code to run this action, which is really just dialog object run action complete message. So I'm going to copy that or click that and click OK. Now what I'm going to do is go back to my Xbasic function and I can go ahead and put that in there. So after everything's done, I'm going to send them a last thing that says this is complete. So if I'm not using chunked, I'd put it in there. Now, the cool thing about it is that if you have like a UX with sub UXs, you could put this to the top level so they are off doing other things. These things will occur. So let's go ahead. And so you could play with kind of the structure of your application to say, you know, so it's going to do its regular stuff. Oh, it's going to do it because I don't hit live preview. I got to get into, so used to that. Okay.
Dan, why is live preview necessary for doing this chunk response?
It has to do with how it's actually using the browser and the methodology.
I see. So Ajax callbacks in general, are they typically live preview things?
Yes, it tends to be that. Although it will, you know, certain things work with working preview, but I think chunked requires it, like basically the browser to be running in a certain mode, which is not in here. So I'll have to check into that, but it's definitely something there. So let's go here, dialogue around to complete message. I thought it did. I don't, let's, oh, I better, you know, let's see what happens here. There's my chunked response. So we should see a message pop up. Oh, you know what? Maybe because the chunked response done, we have to do this as the last step. I'm still getting used to how this response there. So we'll do here is we'll add it there. So the last thing that happens right here, and then I'll turn this back to a V. I think this overwrites kind of how this normally, you know, it's expecting to have, I think this last one be the last one there. So let's take this out here. So I'll look into have a report back for everybody next week there. Let's do a full preview. I know. Okay. You're probably getting tired of this process, but that's why we put the indicator so you can see how it's going. It's not a mystery.
Okay, and where's that disclosure?
There
it is. Process is displayed down at the bottom left.
So what's cool about that is that here's an example. Let's say you had a parent UX with a child UX. On the parent UX, you could actually define this complete message. And then, you know, when it comes back, it then pops it up at the top level to show the person the process is complete. They can go back to the UX to pull up the results or something like that. Reality is, if it's a really long running, I would kick off the results on the back end and basically send them an email saying it's done. That tends to be a common design practice I've seen in a lot of systems out there for like basically exporting reports and stuff where they don't know the loading of the back end system, what it has to do. They tend to go that direction there. Now, another method I've heard is that, you know, if you plan out your application, you could have these reports kind of pre-done on an ongoing basis and then just download them when you need them through like a nightly process. So a lot of our customers will, they have like really long processes, they'll kick them off at night and pre-do them where like the previous day's results are already pre-compiled into a set of PDFs or a report that people can just download. So it's really a strategy of how you implement your application and what your requirements are.
Right. Excellent. Okay, so I think we're out of questions right now on today's topic. That was a great one, though. For 45 minutes into it, and that's all I've been asking.
I know. A little long-winded today.
Responses are cool. I love that. Yeah.
You're going to use them a lot. Use them a lot. So I had another question here, which was how to display PDFs in a part of the interface. So let me go ahead, and I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this because the person sent me a message within an hour of this meeting. So you're going to get what you get, pal. Yeah, the future, be a little more ahead of it. So we love you.
Hey, thanks for sending it in, though. Come on.
No, we appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to go to panels. I'm going to put in a panel card, and I'm going to go ahead and set a header, and we'll go, and I'm going to go ahead and panel. You know what? Let me do this. I'm going to put in a panel layout and then a panel card here. So, okay. And then I'll move this up here, put in a static text. I'll go PDF example. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a button here. So I'm going to add a button. I'm going to go show PDF. Okay. Now I got to put it on pause for a second because I didn't get a PDF. So let me go grab a PDF that I can put on here. So bear with me as I go grab one, and You'll go to the interweb tubes and get something off there.
Yeah, they have one there, I hear.
Yes, I understand that. Super high technology. Let's say, okay, example PDF. Let's see, make sure it's okay. It doesn't have like my social security number or something like that. That'd be really smart. Okay, I'm gonna put that on the desktop. Oh, shoot. Cancel. Almost there, everybody. Just gotta download this bad boy. There we go. We'll put it on the desktop. Okay, cool. Okay, so I've got a sample PDF here. Nothing really exciting there. So the first thing I'm going to do is, in this case, I'm going to import it into my project. So it's in my project here. It doesn't have to be. It could be a different URL, many different things here. So I'm just going to go add file. I'll go to my desktop, and I'm going to go to all files, and I'm going to find that little sample. Okay. So it's in my web project here, so I know it's available. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this button right here, and you'll notice I have a panel card here and a panel card here. So right now, if I show you the working preview, you'll see on the left-hand side, I have a panel card with a button here. On the right-hand side, I have nothing. So I'm going to go into my button. I'm going to go to my actions. I'm going to go to PDF, and I'm going to click here, open an A5W page, static HTML, URL, or PDF document in a pop-up window or div. I think it now allows me to set it to be a panel. So it's misnamed. It actually allows you to go into other locations than just a window or a div. So I'm going to select my URL, and let's see, it's a PDF document. So I clicked PDF document here. I'm going to select there. Notice it's showing my sample PDF because it's in my project. If it's not, then you need to copy it in your web project folder from that standpoint. And then you can also add some parameters in terms of when it opens up. How do you want it to be opened up?
Oh, that's
like
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Now, target, I have a choice. Window, div, tabbed UI pane, browser window, panel. And then I'm going to select my panel card number 2. And then it's really opening it up in an iframe, so I can make some adjustments here if I want to. So let's go ahead and save that. And we'll go to save this as PDF open in panel _UX. And let's go ahead and do a working preview. I think this will work in working preview, but let's just check this. And there it is. Oh, failed to load. I bet. Let's go into preview. It may need the full browser. There's just little nuances. You'll get used to them as you go there. Oh, live preview. Oh no. Okay, there's something up there. So yeah, if I publish this thing, notice it's just, I don't know why. Let's see, I'm in Chrome here. Yeah, it's just not wanting to open that up here. So the issue is the following, is that if I go to live preview, what basically happens is, let me go ahead and show you what goes on. If I go to my C drive, A5 web root, okay, there's a folder in here called live preview, and it basically publishes it here temporarily. So actually what I can do, and bear with me, I'm just going to take, and if you
sample file in there, right?
Yeah, I'm going to take that sample file and put it in there. So bear with me. I'm just going to put that into my live preview window. And again, most likely you would be calling a URL for this stuff, so you wouldn't be doing it from there. So I'll copy that, but I just want to demonstrate that it actually works. So let's go here to live preview, paste that there. Okay. So we'll go in here and do a live preview, and now it should be able to find that file in there. Voila.
There it is. Cool.
And it's cool. It's the full, it's using the PDF, so you can print it, download it, etc. from there. So the trick here is that use the built-in open an A5W static HTML page URL or PDF, but do know you have other options in which you can open these you're not just stuck with a window or div. Since we've added panels and dynamic panels, they're pretty cool there. In fact, let me go ahead and show you this. It's kind of cool. One other thing while we're doing it, I'm going to take this panel card number 2 out. And I'm going to go ahead right here and I'm going to put in what's called a panel navigator. This is kind of a cool trick. So I have a panel navigator, and in here, remember, a panel navigator allows, actually, you know what? I can do it in a panel layout. Let me do it in a panel. I'll just do another panel layout here. Oh, hit the right button here. Insert after. Okay. So I don't have any there. So when I run it, it's going to be an empty. There's no panel cards existing in here. So, so what I can do is, I don't know why I didn't show, but I'll go here. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to try this. Might not work, but I'm going to go to a dynamic panel. And I have to have a panel navigator. Oh, guys, I'm so sorry. Let me do this here. This will only take a second, but this is really cool. It's neat because if you have multiple documents. So I'm going to put in a panel navigator. And in this navigator, I'm going to put in a panel card. So we have one in there. Okay. So looks the same, but now in my show PDF, I'm going to say open in a dynamic panel. And I'm going to put it into panel navigator number 1. So I had a fixed panel card already in there, but I can now add another one, and I'll call this my PDF file. So let me go ahead and demonstrate this, if this works fine. So you'll see it looks kind of what we had before. On the left-hand side, we have a panel card. On the right-hand side, but the reality is we have a panel navigator with a single card. I go there, you'll notice that it added a new panel card here, in here. And so let's see, yeah, it's going to reopen it here. So what I could do is I can go to this panel navigator right here. Instead of carousel, I can say tab bands. And let's save this and do a working preview. And again, I'm kind of off the range here, guys, but it's fun stuff to know about.
Yeah.
So you'll now see when I have a panel navigator, you'll notice my first panel card is called panel card number 2, and it creates a tab metaphor. Now, when I go there, there's my PDF file. Is that cool? So you can essentially,
cool. Yeah.
And so think about it. What's the tabbed UI? Set of buttons with a set of dynamic panels that show up so you can create your own. And you'll see it's really super slick and smooth. I mean, it has all the, really just really sharp from that standpoint. And I could have other ones, like I think when I click here, it's going to reopen this one. But if I had other buttons, they would open as other tabs and you could, continue appending on there. So someone could have multiple tabs open as one. So you have a lot of flexibility on this showed PDF in terms of where you go to. And with the dynamic panel, you could even be able to open it up in multiple locations, or have multiple different PDFs open at one time in the same interface that the person can look through. Really powerful stuff. So that is answering that one person's questions. We have one other question, but I apologize. It has to do with sub UXs on how to do mobile and stuff. We'll cover that next week. I'm so sorry we can't cover it this week. There's just not enough time to do it justice. So I'd like to reopen it for any questions, comments, any things like that. Oh, next week. Oh, we have that presentation. 2 weeks.
Well, that's right. Send an email to guides@alphasoftware.com.
But for the person who's sending in, I'll go ahead and send back some information pointers they can go after.
Then we'll talk about it when we come back. So I do have I think one small question that should take up the rest of the time, but let's see. It has to do with this person wants to put a checkbox or a button list into their design, but they're wondering, how do you know programmatically what items have been selected in that checkbox or in that button list?
Okay, so you can either do it through JavaScript or Xbasic, but let me go ahead and show Xbasic on how we do this. So let me go to the UX here. And we go to, where's my UX? Sorry, spelling. Okay. So I'll create a new UX component. And like we did before, I'm going to go to my controls. I'm going to go ahead and add in a checkbox. And we'll go ahead and put in a button here. Oops, other control. And I'm going to use the same technique of using a callback. Look at my checkbox, and we'll go into my checkbox, go to my choices, and I'll go A, B, C, D. And this could have been populated from a database or things like that. Go into my callback here, add a new one called Ajax. I'm going to just create a function here called what's in the checkbox, or what's selected in the, probably better naming convention than I'm using, but yeah. By the way, this is what not to do. Welcome to what not to do. Okay, so we'll go checkbox. Current items select. Oh, wait. Now what I'm going to do is to cheat. I'm going to go back to my Java Xbasic functions here, and I'm going to go checkbox contents is equal to e.data submitted, and this is why you make your thing dot. What do they call that? CB. Okay, so I didn't screw that up. No, right. That's even too.
That's an easy one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'll go, for now, I'm just going to return an empty string. And we'll go here to debug. Okay. So I go in here, it renders my checkbox. Not pretty, but I can select some items. I'm going to hit callback. Now you'll see that when I step here, that is the checkbox items here. A, B, and D were selected. Now, very important, what came back from here was a pointer. You'll see how it's kind of structured here. It's basically an array of items. So you have 3 items in this array because you could have any number of items there. So if you want to translate that, you could do something like this. You can say, you know, you could basically you'd have to write a little loop to say, okay, what are those? And in fact, if you go down to here, you can get this shows you how to set the values of checkboxes and things like that. So it shows those pieces from that standpoint here. So there's some guidance right here. So that's if you want to determine what is in a checkbox, then you just need to do the e.data submitted checkbox, and that gives you back the results. But do realize the results are a pointer, you know, it's an array. So then you would need to loop through them to actually extract the individual items in there from that standpoint there. So there's just a little bit that goes with it from there. Now, the other method here is that if you don't want to go back to the server, and this one I'm a little weaker on, but give me a try here. JavaScript. I can go in here. I'm going to say, I'm going to go in text mode. I'm going to say var checkbox info is equal to dialog.object dot get value, and then I'll select my control name checkbox. Okay. And then in this case, I'm going to do alert json.stringify checkbox info. So what this does is, again, checkbox info is going to be an array. I think it's a JSON object. I'm not sure, but I'm just going to throw up an alert where I'm going to convert it into string. So let's see if this actually works. So I'm going to select a couple items there and go from there. No, it didn't like it. I must have screwed it up somehow. Let me go ahead. Do I have JSON stringify? Is that? I wonder if my
checks back info coming back as an array as opposed to a pointer variable.
And let's see here. I'm going to open up the Chrome debugger and look at it. And this is like when you go into JavaScript world, this you're going to be friendly. Let me go here to the console, and then let's go ahead and select these and do a JavaScript. And let's see. Okay. So JSON is not derived. So I am an idiot. No, not an idiot, but just not strong in this. This is an incorrect thing here. So bear with me 2 seconds more. I'll go to the interweb tubes, json.stringify.
I was sure someone would be typing the right answer in right now.
I know.
But they haven't. They haven't.
Oh, I know. I
Like
screwed
something
it
silly,
up.
like it should be all lowercase or something.
Yeah, yeah. It's just a case thing because
Okay.
yeah. Okay. So it should be JSON uppercase, stringify lowercase.
Let me see. That's how they
There you
get you.
go. That's what you get for being an Xbasic kind
That's
of
how
guy.
they get you, man.
I know. There it is.
Oh, very nice.
DNE.
Yep,
So
incorporated Jason.
now the
Great.
reality is I'm converting this, but now that you have that object, you can use any JavaScript stuff to walk through those items, to set them to, the sky's the limit. It's just JavaScript coding. And there's tons of examples out there from there. I just use the JSON stringify to take this. It's a JavaScript object. It's basically an array of items, just like Xbasic. We treat it as an array. I turned it into some strings so I can show it in the alert, but there's nothing magical about this. This just converts it into a string. You would probably do something where you loop through those items or whatever you happen to go from there. So you can either do it on the server side or the JavaScript side. As you can see, the JavaScript side is a little more succinct. Plus, it's going to happen instantaneously. But depending on what you need to do, maybe you need to figure out and run a process on the back end with the selections. So there's many ways to do it. Now, if this were a data-bound control, then Alpha is going to take care of reading it, writing it to the database, do all that stuff for you. But if you need to manipulate it through any kind of scripting, then this is the way to go from there.
Awesome. Hey, thanks very much. And we
You're
are at
welcome.
the end of our time. In fact, 1 minute over. So, hey, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Dion, very much for demonstrating, especially chunk responses today. That's a huge deal. Thanks, everyone, for asking questions. If you do have more questions, send them to guides@alphasoftware.com. We're happy to get back to you. And reminder, next week we have a special presentation, so we hope to see you there. All right, take care. Hope to see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.